What's up, family, and welcome back to another installment of Bible Study with the Next Pastor. So glad to have you all hanging out with me. And as you can see, we've been experimenting a little bit with the way we're setting up. So, hey, here's some new scenery. We've been doing this like, man, I think this has to be maybe 22, maybe the 22nd or the 23rd. So we've been doing this quite a bit. These sessions have been absolutely phenomenal, if I can say so myself. And guess what? I can. And I just did. So these have been absolutely phenomenal. Now, again, if any of you are new, I do like to let everybody know that these are not theological deep dives. If you're coming here to get closer to Jesus, you're in the wrong place. If you're coming here to learn more about God, you're in the wrong place. If you're coming here to, get closer to the Holy Spirit and all that good stuff, I promise you, beloved, you are in the wrong place. This conversation is for those of us who have already deconstructed or even fully deconverted, who are simply looking for a creative way, innovative even, way of going back through these scriptures that we used to have such an attachment to and kind of therapeutically reviewing. And so one of the things that we've said is that these sessions are not theology, they're therapy. So we're going to get ready to jump in today because I am going to keep this one a little short. I should have had Tony playing just to kind of set the context. The reason I'm setting this one short is because today my wife and I are celebrating 9 years of marriage. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big deal for both of us because both of us were previously married before. So we've officially hit that juncture where this marriage has lasted longer than the ones that came before it. That makes both of us feel very well, like maybe we got it right this time. But no, so I am going to try to keep this short. So we're going to get ready to kind of jump into this, guns a blazing, and we'll see how much we can get through. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell so that you can get notified whenever we drop new content. And then consider joining our community. What I encourage you to do is go check out our Sunday sessions and look at those description links. And there are plenty of opportunities for you to find a way to get involved. All right, so let's jump into this. Are y'all ready? I think I hit everything that I was supposed to hit. So we're in Genesis chapter 48. We've made it 48 chapters in 21, 22, 23 episodes or what may have you. See, this is why we need more volunteers on the team so that I can keep up with all this stuff because trust me, it's a lot to keep up with. So now it came about after these things that Joseph was told, "Behold, your father is sick." So he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. Oh yeah, this is kind of important. What's getting ready to happen here? When it was told to Jacob, "Behold, your son Joseph has come to you," Israel collected his strength and sat up in the bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous, and I will make you a multitude of peoples, and will give this land to your descendants after you, an everlasting portion." Now, this is actually a great point that Jacob is bringing up here because I highlighted this before in Jacob's life and in Isaac's life. Because originally, God makes this promise with Abraham. And remember, it kind of aggravated me a little bit. It was a little annoying that God makes the promise with Abraham, and Abraham is supposed to be for all the descendants. But for whatever reason, God remakes the promise with Isaac, and then God remakes the promise with Jacob, which, to be fair, it's not necessarily a remaking it. Is that's me being nitpicky, saying, eternal God shouldn't have to kind of refresh his commitments. But either way, it's not technically that, but he is recommitting or recommunicating rather these commitments. But I do want you to notice, because we do have Jacob recalling the fact that, God personally talked to him and gave him this type of commitment. I want you to notice that we have not seen that in Joseph's story. So, because you know that I've been highlighting throughout this series, throughout this book, that God, when it comes to the Old Testament type of moniker, God is identified with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but God is not identified with Joseph. And someone did point out a good reason that this may just have something to do with the rule of threes. It's just, not, there's no reason to go one step further because you've already said the three. And in most cases, I would agree. I'm very familiar with the principle of three, at least when it comes to these particular scriptures. But the problem with that is that there is nobody after Joseph. The line literally, disintegrates into chaos and confusion until we get to the point of slavery in Egypt. So like it really wouldn't have hurt to go that extra one because that's literally it. It is literally Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, end of the line until Moses, So it doesn't seem that this is there for convenience. But I've also kind of been foreshadowing this for you because I am aware of certain things because I have been a diligent student of what I used to call the word. I have been a diligent student of the word. And so there are some things here that you're going to notice. And so one of those things that I'm calling your attention to right now is that Abraham received this promise directly from God. Isaac received this promise directly from God. Jacob received this promise directly from God. Joseph, according to the text, and at least the rendition or the version that we're reading from, which is the New American Standard Bible, does not receive this. At least so far in the story, God does not have this conversation with Joseph. So let's look at verse 5. Now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are mine. This is important. He says, now your two sons that were born to you in Egypt, they're mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine as Reuben and Simeon are. But your children that you have fathered after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the names of their brothers in their inheritance. I wonder if y'all are catching what's kind of happening here. But now, as for me, when I come from Padan, Rachel died. When I came from Padan, Rachel died. To my sorrow in the land of Canaan on the journey, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath, I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Seems like he started a story and trailed off, but I promise you some of this is going to come back. But just to kind of give this refresher, or not this refresher because we just read it, but just to kind of drive this home so we don't miss it. And so it's something that we can come back and talk about is that notice that Jacob is telling Joseph, hey, the sons who were born to you before I came to you, those are going to be mine. I'm going to take ownership of those sons, that they will be my sons. Now, the rest of them, they can be yours and they can identify with the rest of their brothers, which is very interesting there. But these two, Ephraim and Manasseh, will be mine. And for those of you who are familiar with the 12 tribes of Israel and how they are organized according to the Old Testament, you will understand that Ephraim and Manasseh are quite significant. So let's follow on before I drop too much juice. Verse 48, when Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said, who are these? And Joseph said to his father, these are my sons whom God has given me here. So he said, bring them to me, please, so that I may bless them. This is key. All right. So now the eyes of Israel were so dim from age that he could not see, and Joseph brought them close to him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face, and behold, God has let me see your children as well. Then Joseph took them from his knees and bowed with his face to the ground. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left hand towards Israel's right, and brought them close to him. But Israel reached out his right hand and placed it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, crossing his hands, although Manasseh was the firstborn. Okay, do I want to stop right there and kind of walk through this? Yeah. So I'm going to stop right there and we're going to scroll up because I do kind of want to walk through this. So where he says it? Who are the okay, right here, verse 9. Verse 9 is key. So he said, "Bring them to me, please, so that I may bless them." Now, the reason I'm calling this out, because this is, I think this is the episode where we're driving this point home, that the Israeli or Hebraic ideology has a problem with Joseph. Joseph is okay. So there's something that happens in verse 9, and I'm trying to give you some time to kind of think about what it is. But there's something that happens in verse 9 that has not happened into scripture up to this point as we've been reading. And this is, you are actually getting insight into my mind probably about 20 years ago, when I was rereading through this to preach, because I was going to preach a message called the crossover, and I'll walk you through it. But I was rereading this, and it started to bother me a little bit about the way that it was written and the way that I was reading it. And I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. And of course, already having a solid context of Exodus, I was like, oh yeah, because Joseph basically leads everybody into Egypt according to the narrative. Now again, we know that's not supported historically, but we're dealing with the literature, if you will. But we know that Joseph leads the people into Egypt, and the what God told Abraham, don't go to Egypt. God told Isaac, don't go to Egypt. God told Jacob, don't go to Egypt. Now, none of them actually obeyed those rules, but that was the rule, don't go to Egypt. But notice again, God does not have that same conversation with Joseph. So God does not have a conversation with Joseph where he tells Joseph not to go down to Egypt, nor does God have a conversation with Joseph where he says, my blessing is with you, and I'm gonna take care of you, and I'm gonna bless your descendants. Joseph gets none of that. None of it. And then we get to this place where this thing that in 48 chapters has never happened in scripture so far, and that is the grandfather is blessing the grandchild instead of the father blessing the child. And in every example of the blessing being passed, in every example we've read up until this point, the blessing has been passed from father to son. But in this case, Jacob is insisting that it should go from grandfather to grandson. Now, as I thought about that, I begin to wonder why. All right. And the the idea that I came to, the thought that I settled on was, well, Joseph is technically out of alignment. Now, this is very, it's actually a weird thing to think, because the reason I thought this, and I'll walk you through it. The reason I thought this was because Joseph married the Egyptian woman. And the woman that Joseph marries is not just an Egyptian woman, she is a priestess. All right, which means she serves another god. Now, when you read through the Bible with the presupposition that the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are monotheist, then that does seem to be a clear reason as to why God wouldn't identify with Joseph, and perhaps why the other family members also decided not to identify with Joseph. But as we've been reading through, you actually don't find any solid evidence of monotheism. You can see, where we can kind of infer that there are times that the people in the text are henotheistic, or practicing monolatry, where they are reserving their devotion for a specific deity. But also in this, we do see that they recognize the existence of other deities, and up until this point in scripture, because remember, we've not gotten to the 10 commandments yet, there has not been any law given from God or anybody else that says you shall have no other gods before me, or that you shall only worship one God, or that there is only one God. As a matter of fact, as we've read through the story, we see that different people groups have different idols that represent different gods. And for those of us who are a little more a little more learned and a little more, I don't want to say learned, or I mean it fits, but those of us who've been a little bit more invested in the story and have went deeper into the Hebraic words, Aramaic words, and the Greek words as far as the New Testament, then you actually begin to see a cornucopia of gods. It's like gods all the way down, because they're everywhere. So that line of reasoning doesn't actually stand as much as it did before. Um, in the sense, however, though, we go back and then we realize that everybody kind of has a main wife, and then they have concubines, and it seems to be that the main wife is the relative wife. So in the case of Abraham, the main wife is Sarah, and Sarah is his relative. She's a sister. Isaac, the main wife, is Rebecca. I think I'm getting that right. And remember, he had to be sent to Laban to get Rebecca, or was that no? Jacob had to be sent to Laban. But no. Isaac had to be sent back to his family to get Rebecca too. And then, of course, for Jacob, both of his wives, or both of his, he has two relative wives. He has Rachel and Leah, and make sure I get those names right. And then outside of that, they have concubines, otherwise known as slaves. It's really hard to distinguish by which are which. And it seems like the children of those marriages are, for the most part, unrecognized as far as inheritance. But then that doesn't stand when you get to Jacob, because then remember, many of Jacob's children are outside of the relative wives. They come from the slaves, Zilpah, Bilhah, and all these folks with all these names. And so just kind of walking through that, it becomes a little harder. But when because then Abraham does remarry. By the way, French theory suggests that the person that Abraham remarries is actually Hagar, because remember, Hagar is sent away, and according to the story, she goes back to her home. And according to legend, her home is that Hagar was royalty, that she was a princess. And so she goes back home, and eventually her and Abram meet back up, and now she's going by her or now Abram gives her a Hebrew name or whatever, or the other way around, and Keturah. So amongst French theories, Abraham, after Sarah died, went out and made Hagar his main wife as Keturah. Again, that is fringe. But as I've often stated, all of this is fan fiction. All mythology is fan fiction, and so you can do with it whatever the hell you want to. You understand? But so in that case, I guess that line of reasoning still does follow, because in this case, Joseph's main wife is not a relative. She's not a relative wife. Joseph's main wife is a priestess of another religion. She's the daughter of Potipharah. I think the way that went. So there may be some relation to Potiphar. Wouldn't it be weird if Potiphar's wife was Potipharah, and the person that Joseph is marrying is the daughter of Potiphar and Potipharah? That twist, right? Plot twist. The plot ski thickens. Um, but anyway, so you see here something that's happening that doesn't happen anytime before this. And as of now, my memory escapes me if this ever happens again. But the grandfather passes the blessing. But then it goes beyond that. Joseph, puts his children up to his father in order, which I don't know if it has been highlighted in the narrative prior to this point, that the blessing has to come from a certain hand. I can't recall if that was highlighted, but apparently the right hand is the hand that the good blessing comes from, and the left hand is the hand that the lesser blessing comes from. So however you're going to work out that, i.e. magic, that's the best I can say. But Joseph seems to have this understanding, so he moves his older child towards the right hand, and he moves his younger child towards the left hand, and just like, and I'm guessing Jacob is kind of like his father. He's getting old in age, and his eyes are getting dim. I don't know why everybody in this family goes blind the closer they get to death. But either way, as it's coming, Jacob crosses his hands, crisscross. I told you when I 20 years ago, when I was going back over this in preparation for a message called the crossover, this wrecked my whole message because I had this beautiful message all kind of prepared, and then and well, I don't want to say it wrecked it. It actually made it even more relevant, even though good preaching is always taking the Bible out of context. I don't know if y'all have realized that yet, because if you keep the Bible in context, it's just not good preaching. But as far as the black tradition of preaching, African American tradition of preaching, the whole point is to take this story, and regardless of what this story is trying to say, regardless, which means that the African American preaching experience is very much eisegetical, which means we're not preaching exegesis, what is in the text. We are looking for what we can pull out of the text to make the story of the text relevant to people living right now. One of my mentors used to call that building a bridge of contemporization, which that's just a over flowery way of saying eisegesis, which again kind of goes back to it's fan fiction. You can do what you want, and so this idea that I had for this message called the crossover was that that somebody was presenting, something to be blessed, and I'm trying to remember it myself. It's actually hard for me to preach like that now because it was so fluffy, and the point, I think the big point is that God is going to switch it up. God is gonna cross over. You thought God was gonna zig, and God was gonna zag. Somebody set you up for failure. They thought you weren't good enough because you weren't born with the right credentials. You weren't born with the right pedigree, because you were not the firstborn, because you have not crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, because you have not been perfect your whole little life. People underestimated you. And when it came time to put somebody up, they always try to put you in the number 2 spot. But I came to tell somebody that God is getting ready to cross. It was stuff like that. We'd cross over. Um, but and I did still preach the message, but I ended up walking away from that preparation, more like, oh, like I thought I knew Joseph, and I thought I knew this relationship, and these relationship dynamics are very different than what I remember reading. And it's of course is like, because reading a book is also like watching a movie or watching a show. I've probably watched the Game of Thrones series maybe 7 or 8 times, and every time, all the way through the dreaded season, the season which shall not be named. Uh, which the only real problem that I have with Game of Thrones, excuse my rabbit trail, season 8, my only real problem was that they misnamed the episode. And this is the episode that many people were shocked by, but the episode where, you know Daenerys lays waste to King's Landing, with the dragons. For those of you who indulge, my only problem with that whole situation is that they failed. They missed an opportunity on naming that episode. Do you know what that episode should have been called? Fuck them bells. That's what the episode should have been called. That episode should have been called Fuck Them Bells. And anybody who didn't see that shit coming did not understand how close Daenerys and Missandei were. Sorry, I just had to geek out for a moment. But yes, please write the writers, the producers of that show, and let them know that they deserve an epic fail just for that episode alone. They should have named it Fuck Them Bells. We would have all been prepared. We would have all been prepared. All right, so big point is, back to the story, back to regularly scheduled programming. Joseph puts up his children to be blessed with the full expectation that his older son is going to receive the birthright, which I don't know why he has any full expectation of anything at this moment, because his father is already throwing a flag on the play by saying, I'm not going to let you bless him. And that's what it was. I remember wrestling with that, like, holy snap. Joseph is the first father in this lineage, in this line of patriarchs, who, at least according to the narrative, from my perspective, is absolutely disqualified from blessing his own children. I mean, what? This is okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Now, I beat up on Joseph last week because I don't like his economic practices, right? And I highlighted that. I was very clear about that. But comparatively, relatively, when compared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph is the fucking saint. When you think about what Abraham has done, what Isaac has done, and all the things that Jacob has done, I mean, this dude is a trickster for a reason, right? And none of them were disqualified from blessing their own children. Joseph, for the most part, is the first person who is literally a victim of his own circumstances. He's the first person in this line of patriarchs who did not go to Egypt on his own will and accord. He went to Egypt because he was sold into slavery. And it seems that apparently either God or Jacob cannot take that into account, that his life has actually been the result of their own dereliction of duty. They can't see that. Instead, all they see is that, nope, you're on the wrong side, so you can't bless your own children. Get the fuck out of here. Right? But yeah, okay. Did I stay on that too long? I don't know. But it was good. It was good. That's good talk there. That's good talk. All right, so let's pick up at verse 15. And he blessed Joseph and said, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys, and my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and they may grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. See, this still just like this is. It's just interesting. It's just interesting. There's something that had ran through my mind, but I think I lost it. Oh yeah. Throughout Joseph's story, one of the lines that's used repeatedly is, "And that the Lord was with Joseph." And I'm like, if the Lord was with Joseph the whole time, why is the God not also with Joseph and okay with Joseph blessing his own children? Look at verse 17. When Joseph saw that his father placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, it displeased him, and he grasped his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. So he sees his dad doing this. He's like, wait a minute, bruh. Um, Manasseh, to move it from Ephraim's head, Manasseh is the firstborn. And Joseph said to his father, "Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Place your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He will also become a people, and he will also be great. However, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." It's now at this moment, I can't, just based off of the wording, are you blessing him because he will be great, or is it the blessing that will make him great? Because if it's the blessing that will make him great, then it really shouldn't matter. You should just be blessing the one you're supposed to be blessing. But if you're blessing him because he will be great, then that is a very interesting loophole, and it also makes the blessing absolutely unnecessary. It's almost like it's like stacking the ponies. You know what I'm saying? You're stacking the deck. You already know this guy's gonna win, and so you're like, yeah, I'm on his side. I'm betting on him. So it's like you're not even blessing him. You're just betting on him at this moment. But again, very very interesting. Oh man, and the younger shall be greater than he. And then also I like to highlight that again. I don't quite get why Joseph is surprised, because In essence, this is how it has continued to work. None of the firstborns have gotten the blessing. Joseph should have expected this. We've talked about this. Apparently, God hates firstborns. Interesting, right? He only like onlyborns. Ooh. All right. So he blessed them that day, saying, by you, Israel, will pronounce blessings, saying, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. And so he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Manasseh, sorry. Then, or however you pronounce it. Then Israel said to Joseph, behold, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And I give you one portion more than your brothers, which I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and my bow. Very interesting, very disappointing turn of events here, but this does kind of further drive the point home that I've been mentioning all along the way, that Joseph is the wild card, that he's there is a reason he's not honored, and you kind of see it, you kind of see it here. All right. I think we have time to jump in one more chapter. And so let's see if we can run through this. I kicked the camera a little bit. Yoink. Let's bring this back over here. Y'all are seeing my pencil. We don't need that. We don't need that. Then Jacob summoned his sons and said, assemble yourselves so that I may tell you what will happen to you in the days to come. Can Jacob just die already? That might be the name of this episode. Can Jacob just die already? Um, gather together and listen, sons of Jacob. Yes, listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might and the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power, uncontrollable as water. You shall not have preeminence. Interesting. Because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Huh. Simeon and Levi are brothers, their swords are implements of violence. May my soul not enter their council, may my glory not be united with their assembly. For in their anger they killed men, and in their self-willed, they lamed oxen. I feel like there's some stories that are not being told here. Jacob is recounting stuff that has not been here. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them among Israel. As for you, Judah, your brothers shall praise you, your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies, your father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion who dares to stir him up. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Now, this is very interesting. Until he comes to Shiloh, until he comes to whom it belongs. Very interesting. So we definitely see it's basically like Jacob shows up and, he's getting ready to die. And he's like, you know what? I got some shit that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a very long time. And it's basically, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. Fuck you. And that's kind of like what's happening here, because he gives like a royal fuck you to all the other sons and then gets to Judah and says, hey, but you're cool. And of course, this has significance here because ultimately, even though when we're talking about the Bible, we use phrases such as Hebraic culture or Israel culture, but this is definitely, as you read the story, you kind of understand this book is Jewish supremacist. Which means that this book is written from, or these books rather, these stories are written from the perspective of Judah being supreme or even preeminent, which is the word that was given to somebody and taken away from somebody just a few verses earlier. Very interesting. You shall be preeminent in power, but you shall have no preeminence. Interesting. All right. So he ties his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washes his garments in wine and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are dull from wine and his teeth white from milk. Zebulun will reside at the seashore, and he shall be a harbor for ships. And his flank shall be toward Zidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying between the sheepfolds. Oh, he's a Democrat. When he saw that resting place was good and the land was pleasant, he bowed his shoulder to carry burdens and became a slave at forced labor. Damn. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a horned viper in the path that bites the horse's heel so that its riders fall backwards. For your salvation I wait, Lord. As for Gad, a band of raiders shall attack him, but he will attack at their heels. As for Asher, his food shall be rich, and he will yield royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe let loose. He utters beautiful words. Joseph is a fruitful branch by a spring. Its branches hang over a wall. The archers provoked him and shot at him and were hostile towards him. But his bow remained firm. His bow remained firm, and his arms were agile. From the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, from there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. Good blessings. This is long, right? He's saying some good stuff, I guess. The blessing of your father have surpassed the blessings of my ancestors up to the furthest boundary of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph and on the top of the head of one distinguished among his brothers. So he's saying some really nice stuff about Joseph. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. If in the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoils. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them. When he blessed them, everyone, with the blessing appropriate to him. That is so hilarious. So again, this whole setup was fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool, you know. And then Jacob dies. Then he commanded and said to them, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron. How long is this freaking chapter? In the cave that is in the field, don't care. Verse 31. Oh, okay, it's over, thankfully. They buried Abraham and his wife Sarah. There they buried Isaac and his wife Rebekah, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it, purchased from the sons of Heth. When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. Well, ding dong, the motherfucker is dead. I think we should all be excited. I think we should be happy that he's not here no more. Bye, Jacob. We never liked you anyway. Goodbye. There was that radio commercial used to come on. Don't need no friends. Goodbye. That's how I feel about that. That chapter. I'm glad we made it through it because I would have hated to open up next week's episode with such a boring chapter. But as you can see, this session definitely drove the point home that Joseph is not very well respected or received. But we also see in return, um, Joseph's sons are honored, even though he is an Ephraim and Manasseh, and you'll see that moreover, especially um, as we get deeper into the books of the law. But it's very clear that even though Jacob does love Joseph, is that Joseph's life circumstances have placed him out of favor, which is very interesting because it seems like if you really want a good life in the Bible, you have to get out of favor with God. It's like that's the best way to get a good life. If you're out of favor with God, apparently, then you get to be number two in charge of Egypt. Don't know how that happens, you know. But this has been a wonderfully delightful Bible study. Again, I did let you know this one was going to be a little shorter because my wife and I are celebrating 9 years married, 9 years strong, 1 year away from a decade. Man, it's absolutely beautiful. It's been a wonderfully amazing journey. Like, man, we've made leaps and bounds in our relationship. Um, Luckily, she got the atheist version of me, so I think she has a much healthier husband than I likely was in my first relationship, and it's just been wonders. We have what I like to call a partnership, and that's, to me, that's the only version of marriage I want, where we're two equals, and we're both responsible and accountable for being there for each other in all the different ways that we've defined that. And but so I'm gonna get off of here and try to carve some time in this day to celebrate in between work and all of that stuff. And just another interesting thing for anniversaries, because my wife's birthday is next week as well. For anniversaries, we typically make it a family thing, uh, partly because we are a blended family. So our marriage anniversary isn't just the day that her and I became husband and wife. It's also the day that our families, became a blended family, one family. And so we do like celebrating that together. So we'll probably be doing some celebrating with our kids as well. All right, then. So that's all I have. I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me. Until next time, man. Y'all. Oh, wait a minute. I almost got off of here before saying it. Please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that alert notification bell, consider joining our community, consider volunteering in our community. Also, consider financially supporting the work that we're doing. You'd be surprised at how much more we could get done with just a little bit more help. And then, other than that, thank y'all for hanging out with me, man. Until next time, keep rising and be the bridge. I'll holla at y'all later.